is Allison. I'm the Programs Outreach and Youth Services Manager here at Monterey County Free Libraries. Thank you for joining me today for another book chat. Today I'm going to chat with you about the book Two Kisses for Maddy, a memoir of loss and love by Matthew Logelin. It's funny because in the book, in the first chapter, he talks about how his wife pronounced his last name wrong at first, but he doesn't actually say how to pronounce it. So I apologize if I said it wrong. This book I was interested in reading because it has been turned into a movie on Netflix with Kevin Hart, and I always love to read the books and watch the movies and compare the two. So this is the story of Matt and his daughter Maddy, and also of his wife Liz. Matt and Liz met in high school and were high school sweethearts and together for the next 12 years before Liz's untimely death at the age of 30 after giving birth to their daughter Maddy. And it was a very sudden death. She died 27 hours after Maddy was born. Maddy was born 7 weeks premature, and sadly, Liz never even actually got to hold Maddy because after her birth by C-section, she was rushed to the NICU, and when Liz was on her way to see Maddy, she felt dizzy and ended up suffering from a pulmonary embolism and passed away. And that sounds like I gave away a lot of the book, but that is the basic premise for what follows, which is Matt chronicling his life where he suddenly becomes a single father while also having to grapple with the grief that he's feeling at the loss of his high school sweetheart and the person he thought he was going to spend the rest of his life with, as well as learn how to raise a newborn. So this was a really, really great book. It was very, very touching. I felt like the author was very raw and real. I found him really relatable. He swore a lot. He talked about how he just had to make it work in a lot of situations. He was very open with his emotions and talking about how his grief at times would just become so overwhelming that he wasn't able to properly function in certain situations. There's one part towards the end of the book where he's talking about going on a little snorkeling trip, and he says that, the snorkel masks, you can't be sobbing while you're wearing one because they fog up too quickly. He talks a lot about the stages of his grief. This book goes through the first year, so it goes from Maddy's birth and Liz's death to the 1-year anniversary, so Maddy turning 1 and the 1-year anniversary of Liz's death. Intertwined with that are a lot of stories about his relationship with Liz and his relationship with her family and his family. The start of the book is all about their relationship and the foundation that their relationship built upon to bring this child into the world and all of the hopes that they had for their future together. So it is really, really touching, really heartfelt. There were a lot of parts that if you have experienced any major grief in your life, you'll really relate to, even if it wasn't the loss of a spouse. For instance, Matt finds that he can't even sleep in his bedroom for the first 5 months after Liz's death because there are just too many reminders of her. And for anybody who's lost anyone major, you understand that there are things that can just really set you off, and you try as hard as you can at times to avoid those. He also talks about landmarks and moving on. So one example of that is when he decides to sell Liz's car, which has just been in front of their house and always stings a little bit when he sees it when he's pulling up, because to him that was a sign that she was home and waiting for him. So it's just really heartfelt. There are a lot of little things, and then it's just really funny too. So there's a lot of funny moments of him learning how to be a parent and just making it work. There's one point where he talks about going to the top of this mountain on a little tram car, and when he gets to the top, realizing that he didn't bring any clothes to keep Maddy particularly warm at this higher altitude, and how he digs around in the diaper bag and finds socks to use as mittens. It's just all about how he makes it work, which makes it feel really real and relatable. He doesn't paint any sort of rosy picture, but it's not all doom and gloom either. He's very realistic about what he's feeling and talks a lot about his support network and the people around him who help him to make it through. What I really liked is that in the front cover there are a lot of pictures of Liz, some of which are referenced throughout the book. And then in the back are a lot of pictures of Maddy. And again, some of these are referenced throughout the book. So it was fun sometimes, like this picture, for instance, down here from her first birthday, he talks about in the book where he's talking about her smearing cake all over him. And it was nice to be able to flip back and take a look at the pictures to really add that extra depth to the story that he was telling. The movie on Netflix, as I said, is called Fatherhood. It is a lot different. It's the same basic premise, but it actually extends past the first year, going into the child being 5 or 6, and the struggles that the father is having with starting a new relationship and balancing new relationships with caring for his daughter and being his daughter's sole support. So it's the same basic premise of the wife passing soon after giving birth and the struggles of dealing with your grief and raising a newborn, but it extends the story further and dives into some material like relationships with other women that do not get addressed in this book. So they're very interesting to read and watch together. And what I really enjoyed is that this story is universal, this tale of loss and love. And the author of this book is white, and his wife was white. But in the movie, he is played by Kevin Hart, who is black. And it just shows that these things happen to everybody. And it really showed how universal these themes are. And I really appreciated that that was done in the casting of the movie. So if you want to check out Two Kisses for Maddy, we have it in our collection. I would highly recommend it. It is a bit of a tearjerker in some parts, and then you can head on over to Netflix and watch the movie if you choose. If you have any book recommendations you'd like to share, please let us know in the comments, and we hope to see you next time on Book Chat. Thanks everybody, and have a great week.